What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Daily Groomer podcast. I'm your host, Alex Martin, and today we have the founder of Well Groomed Pets. They are a national franchise starting nearly 100 salons in just under 2 years, if I have my math right. Personally, Michael Hill has been an entrepreneur for 24 years himself. As an experienced startup founder, he understands many of the challenges owners of grooming businesses face. They also have a very unique approach to canine wellness, doing a 50-point wellness check on each canine during every visit. He is here today to share his secrets with us on helping grooming business owners scale and talk a little bit more about that 50-point wellness visit. That's definitely got you guys raising your eyebrows like it did mine. Michael, thank you so much for joining us here.
Hey, Alex, how you doing? Nice to see you.
I'm good, man. I really appreciate it. Honestly, a little bit of vulnerability here. I came across Well Groomed Pets. Maybe I don't know where I was. I live in Dallas. I'm not sure if you guys have any in Dallas or not. Maybe it was in
Yeah.
Dallas. Okay, so I came across Well Groomed Pets, and I just walked in and was like, "Wow, it's just a beautiful salon." I was like, "This is just beautifully done." And then I did my little homework and did my research, and I was like, "What is this?" And I realized that you guys were a franchise system or a franchise network. I'm not sure how you guys prefer to be called. And then we obviously found out a little bit more about you and who you were behind this. And I just thought, holy cow, we got to get this guy on the podcast because you have not only scaled businesses before, but now you're scaling here in such a short amount of time. So I'm super stoked to have you on today. Before we get into anything, I need to learn how you made the jump from dentistry over to pet grooming.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that question. The world that I lived in dentistry were dental laboratories. And so my employees, we made crowns and bridges and veneers. A lot of my team were artists. They were ceramists and they'd work with colored porcelain to make teeth perfect in the natural world. There's actually a pretty direct analogy between building dental laboratories and building dog grooming salons, because dog groomers, at the end of the day, these incredibly hardworking, super passionate folks are artists because and they're working with a canvas that moves. It's these dogs just don't sit still, and they have different kind of personalities and the way they see the world and what they care about and what is important to them and how they want to be viewed. And when I got into this, I knew that I could compete in whatever it is that I was going to do next. I'd sold my company, as I shared with you. I'd sold my company to private equity, and I was sort of looking around thinking, okay, what's next? And as a pet guy, we call ourselves pet enthusiasts. I used to go to the dog shows and hang out at the dog parks and say hi to all the dogs. And I wanted to do something in the space. And right about that time, my dog, Chester, golden retriever, who I'd had for 8 years, died of cancer. And, as I was sharing with you, we kind of missed the signs that something had changed. Dog groomers don't miss those signs because they see these animals. But for us, I saw that the change in energy, because I see my dog every day, that was hard to see. The change in weight, although it was nuanced and subtle, we missed that. The change in appetite, we just thought he's getting older, so we missed all that. And so for me to make that jump, and when Chester had passed away, I spent just a minute or two looking at what was going on with dog cancer, canine cancer. And what I learned was there's no mammal on the planet Earth that has a higher occurrence of cancer than dogs. And so as I was thinking about what's my next venture, where do my passions lie, animal health, canine health seemed to be something I could jump right in. And so that's what transitioned me from that last venture into this new venture. And man, it has been eye-opening, to say the least.
I mean, all to avenge Chester.
Yeah, exactly.
No,
we actually named, it is kind of funny. So we're a dog grooming franchise system. You had asked how we explain that to folks, but in the industry, we're a franchise system. But our technology is named after my dogs. And so Chester is our wellness technology that's in all of our salons. Bella is some of the automation and marketing tools that we use. That's my current golden retriever. And we have another one called Gus, and we have Roscoe rollbacks and some other things going on. We'll talk about that if we get a chance.
That is amazing. I love that. I want to get to a point one day where I can name my products after my dogs. That's awesome. Well, so the first thing my mind jumps to, Michael, when you talk about, whether we chalk it up as a vending gesture or whatever it is. I mean, for lack of a better word, you did this because of something you realized in your personal life, and it had to do with canine wellness. I'm curious. I mean, I feel like the traditional person's path would look at more of the vet or vet tech industry when it
Yeah.
comes to canine wellness. You mentioned it briefly with, there's groomers see dogs so much more frequently than anyone else, but why was grooming kind of like the choice rather than vets when it came to canine wellness as the realization?
Yeah.
Because it
And
hasn't, I mean, obviously it hasn't been done in grooming before, really.
yeah. And let me first compliment you on what you're doing, because I think you've landed, knowingly or unknowingly, you've landed. You're the sun, if you will, and everything is revolving around this industry. Dog grooming is the center of the universe when it comes to the pet ecosystem, and I say that there's a lot of constituents. We've identified somewhere in the area about 20 different pet constituents that are in the space that have a meaningful impact on animals. Veterinarian is one, dog grooming is one. But when you look at a vet, and this is where your audience will really, I think, this will resonate with them. Veterinarians sort of position themselves at the top of the market. They're health professionals, their education, and when it comes to canine health or any animal health, they really are the ones who can affect change in a meaningful way. But dog groomers, we're the ones who actually can be proactive. If you think about veterinarian, only about 20% of all vet visits are for routine maintenance, wellness, and health checks. People just go to the vet when there's something wrong with their animal. So veterinarians are being reactive. And so a lot of that intervention, a lot of that health intervention is happening way downstream. Dog groomers are way upstream. And so when we have our hands on these animals for 2 hours at a time, and we're seeing them every 30 to 60 days, there's no one in the pet industry with that level of hands-on experience with these animals. The average veterinarian will schedule their appointments every 15 minutes. In dog grooming, it's every couple of hours. And if you're doing doodles, like large doodles, that might be 3 hours or 3.5. So hands-on, working with these animals frequently and for long periods of time, we get to see things. And so that's where we sort of, we dove in. And I think for your audience, this is where we really have come to this industry, kind of like what you're all doing here. And that is, can we elevate the voice and can we elevate the stature of the dog groomer? They are actually at the top of the entire ecosystem, because everything we see provides us with an opportunity to provide that referral intervention. Hey, you should bring your dog to a veterinarian. Your dog is seeing a lot of anxiety. Can we recommend a trainer to you? If your dog is getting sick and they're getting older, maybe a breeder, a good high quality breeder that they could talk to for that dog in their final days, or maybe their next dog. And so we really do sit at the center of the universe when it comes to the pet ecosystem. So that's why we're so excited to be a part of this industry.
I mean, I love it. I love the visualization you just gave me of pet groomers being at the top of this pyramid of the, owner pet, service professional relationship. I mean, groomers see everything first. They build a closest relationship with that pet because of how frequently they see them. They build a closest relationship with that pet owner, again, because of frequency. And you're right. I mean, they've got their hands on that pet for upwards of an hour, no matter what pet that is. And so, I mean, you know more, I mean, than, some cases the owners do about that pet. So that is, it is remarkable how you put that. And I love the visualization of dog groomers being the sun of the pet universe. That is freaking awesome. I'm curious, there is this huge, like, I don't want to call it a divide or a controversy within pet grooming between where you draw the line in like health advice versus like, prescribing, let's call it, right? You have tons of, one side of the aisle will say your dog is here to get groomed, cleaned, etc. That's it. I'm not a certified vet professional. And so, recommending that your dog might have an ear infection could even draw the line. Versus the other side of the aisle aligns more on the side of, hey, while I'm here, I will check out your dog's ears, your dog's toenails, tongue, stuff like that, and make sure the anal glands obviously is huge as well, and make sure that your dog is healthy just because he's a friend of mine as well. Now, again,
Yeah.
I'm not one to stand on right or wrong there, but there is kind of this divide on where we draw the line between giving health advice and not. What is your opinion on, where groomers should sit in that?
Yeah, that is such a great question. So I think the first place to start is We are not health professionals. That's for veterinarians. What we are advocates. We're advocates for canine health. But where do we draw that line? I think we move the line. I think that's really important for this industry. If we're going to elevate this industry to where it ought to be, we have to insert ourselves aggressively into the space. For whatever reason, I think groomers get a bad rap. They're in the back, nobody really sees them. And they do this incredibly difficult yet beautiful thing with these animals. They care for these animals. It's hard work. They're lifting heavy dogs. And so there's this really interesting part of the industry where it's almost like, use a sport analogy, you might have one rock star on a team and, the LeBron James or the Michael Jordan or the Steph Curry. Maybe that's your veterinarian, but then Steph Curry without a team is going to kind of miss this. Well, we're the farm. We're the system that actually looks at these animals and goes, hey, you need to take a look at this dog. So I would say this first, there's an opportunity, and it already exists. Groomers are working with their animals, and without having an intentional strategy for being an advocate, they sort of opportunistically deliver that anyway, because they'll see a wound on an animal and bring it to the pet parent's attention. They'll see the ear infection or smell the ear infection. They'll bring that to the pet parent attention. If we weigh these dogs and we start to track the weight of the animals over time, weight's a huge factor, particularly not so much about weight loss, although that's a big deal, but canine obesity can reduce the life of a dog by up to 18 months. Imagine the lifetime value of your clients that is being diminished. If you work with 500 clients a month and you can get an extra 18 months out of each one of your clients, well, that's just good business. And so we can be advocates. It's good for our business. I think it elevates us within the industry. And so we're not health professionals. We should never pretend to be health professionals, but we can train ourselves up on how to look and what to look for with animals. And really, at the end of the day, all we're trying to do is help the pet parent see changes in wellness. And so if I could just take a second here, I just want to talk about the landscape. I think when you look at the dog grooming industry, there are big systems like the Petcos and the PetSmarts of the world. And I think they're taking some really good first steps here. They're doing some physical observations of animals. And there's some other brands out in the market that are also doing well. They're looking at the things like the skin, the coat, the ears, the nose, the teeth. We happen to do eyes as well, but those are physical characteristics that we can observe. And so if we keep track of that, we can help the pet parent. I can't tell you how many times we have seen dogs with wounds that when you bring to the attention of the pet parent, they're like, I didn't even know that was it. I didn't even see that. Oh my gosh. So to help them understand what's happening with their dog, whether it's a hot spot, maybe they're getting in fights, maybe they just miss it because it's what we see every single day. I mean, I didn't know that I gained 5 pounds till I went to the gym the other day and I was like, holy, got on the scale, right? So how do you see that unless someone else goes, you look at me and go, hey, Mike, what's going on, man? What's happening?
Going on with the New Year's? I thought we got the new year going here.
Exactly. So we got to so there's the physical attribute. And then at Well Groomed, what we've done is we've added physiological. So we're measuring the weight of the animals and we're doing some other unique things. And then we're looking at behavioral. So we're having conversations with the pet parent. Have there been changes in aggressiveness, anxiety? Have you noticed anything? And when you have that conversation, they go, you know what? Yeah, actually, he's not obeying me as much as he used to. There's something going on there. Well, dogs can't talk. And so sometimes acting out is a result of that. Now, we don't know that to be true, but what we can do is observe it. We can track it over time, and we can help be an advocate for the dog and also be an assistant to the pet parent and letting them know, hey, something's changed with your animal. You might want to get checked out. So we're not health professionals, but I would say we're probably the strongest partner that every veterinarian in every community around this country could possibly have if we can connect strongly with them as a partner.
I mean, that's amazing. And the way you put that, I mean, it seems like a no-brainer for every service in the industry to get together to streamline. I mean, it's all for the pets anyways, right? And it's like, okay, if I know I've got someone, my groomer checking out my pet, or even just they've got their hands on them. I mean, maybe they'll notice something I never noticed every 4 to 6 weeks. I mean, that's one level of protection. And then if they're connected to my vet, that's a second level, right? And you start layering on these things that you're right. You might buy an extra 18 months, 24 months for your dog just like that by just being a little bit more cognizant. I'm curious. You talk about all of these things you guys check for. Can you walk us through, and especially for the business owners that are listening to this podcast, how you guys actually do that process when a new client walks in, and then maybe what it looks like for recurring clients as well?
Yeah. So there are six categories that we're going to measure when a dog comes in. And this, it doesn't matter if the dog's coming in for grooming or the dog's coming in for a table service like nails or just some ear, a plucking or something very simple, 10-minute. We're still going to do this. It's a little more than 50 different wellness points that we're going to track. So the six categories are physical, physiological, behavioral. We do lump and lesion mapping. This is a big one because of the proliferation of canine cancer. We're in a position to see the growth of a bump on a dog, and that's really important. Now, look, it might just be a bug bite. That's okay, but let's make sure the pet parent knows there's something here and it's growing. So lump and lesion mapping, we do nutrition. We want to understand the eating behavior of the animal. What are you feeding the dog? How often do you feed the dog? How much do you feed the dog? And then mind and body. We're talking about lifestyle. How are these animals living? Are they indoor dogs? Are they out? They're getting their exercise? What's the socialization look like for the animal? So those are the six categories that we focus on. Now that sounds like a lot. And when I say there's over 50, there's actually 67 points of wellness that we'll track, but 50 plus are done every single time they come in. So it's built into the workflow. So a dog comes in, the first thing we do is we go through the behavioral assessment. So we're having that conversation with the pet parent about what's changed with their animal, much like a physician would do when you walk in and sit down. Before you tell him your elbow hurts, he's going to say, "What have you been doing lately? Tell me about your life. What's happening? Mike, why is your blood pressure so high? What's going on in your world?" Right? So you want to have that conversation because it begins to create a context for a picture that might help us intentionally look for things. Then we do the physiological. So we're putting them on the scale right away when they come in. We let the pet parent know. Now we track all this. So we've built some proprietary software to make it easy for groomers to keep track of it in our franchise system. But we can see if the dog has had a certain percentage, we use an algorithm that shows how the wellness has changed and it gets flagged. And then if something has reached a certain level, it drops onto the pet parent's phone. But groomers can do this without our technology. It's just being intentional with it, right? Just recording some small things. So that's we do our physiological and we do our behavioral right up front. And we have at the front of the store. Now, a lot of groomers don't have this. It's largely due to the economics of the grooming industry, but they won't have someone sitting at the front who does nothing but work with pet parents. We call them wellness technicians, and we train them up on wellness. So they're the ones who work the front of the store. In the back of the salon is where we do a lot of the physical and some of the lump and lesion mapping. My dental days, we use digital calipers. If we feel a bump or we see a lesion on a dog, every salon and every station has calipers. We'll measure the size of that. We'll record it. And the next time we come in, our software knows where it is. We go back and we can measure it again. Now, this has happened a couple of times. And we're a relatively new franchise system, as you pointed out, a couple of years. We have 14 open salons. We've sold 100, so we have a lot in development. But already we've had situations where the pet parent did not notice changes in a lump. They took their dog to the veterinarian because we noticed that the bump was growing. And in 2 cases, they were cancer, and they were able to remove the cancer, treat the animal, and the animals are doing well. And that saved just so much money for the pet parent and a whole lot of stress and anxiety for what could be coming. So we think earlier intervention, that's our role. It's to make sure the parents have the information. We can't force them to take their dogs to the vet, but we can certainly let them know, and most do. We get to work with pet parents, and this may be a gross generalization, and I don't know how it'd be interesting to see how everyone feels about it, but I think the clients that we get to work with, they don't love their animals more, but they pay attention a little bit more. They're trying to get them groomed. They're spending money on doing that on a regular basis, and they're working with animals that I think require a little more hands-on. Like if you've got a doodle, that dog's got to get groomed every 6 weeks. And so that's a commitment that you make as a pet parent. So I think that's where we plug some or connect some dots, I think, in the space. Is that helpful?
Yeah, no, I mean, absolutely. I'm curious that, you're talking about wellness technicians. You guys have that little dentist tool I can't remember the name of for the life of me, right? You guys got all these things now. You got the proprietary software. You got it
Yeah.
all, right? And we've even you noted earlier in the conversation that some of you guys' grooming appointments are even in massive 3 hours. I'm
Yeah.
curious for people out there that maybe aren't as familiar with some of the wellness checks that you've presented here, or even just using technology in their case to make their business faster, better, stronger, etc. How do you view the ROI of all of these? Well, first, is there added expenses for what you guys are doing? I would imagine the answer is yes. So I'm curious
Yeah.
what those added expenses are. And then how do you view the ROI of those added expenses? It must be worth it, obviously, if you guys are doing it. So I'm curious how you think through that.
Yeah. And so I very much appreciate that. We think that's an important differentiator. Dog groomers and owners of dog grooming salons tend to be dog groomers mostly. You know, the economies to get into a dog grooming business are not that high. So I don't know if you know the numbers. You probably do. There's a couple 100,000 dog groomers in the United States. There's a little over 130,000 dog grooming businesses in the United States. And that's anyone from mobile groomers to people hanging shingles in apartment communities to retail centers like what we're building, right? And so there's 90 million plus dogs in the US. Roughly a little more than half require regular dog grooming. So we know we have a big market. And here's the problem. The supply of dog grooming businesses is still way lower than the demand. And so a lot of dog groomers look in their space and look at their community and they go, oh, gosh, I can't afford to raise my prices. You absolutely 100%. I promise you, you can raise your prices. And so getting the unit economics right. And what I mean by that is making sure that your revenue and your labor, your gross margin is really, really nailed. You should be at 45% cost of goods on every dog that you see. Now, some dogs will be a little bit lower and some dogs will be higher. We track it across the day, but 45%, go ahead, I'm sorry.
I was going to say, so, I mean, break that down for me even more.
Oh yeah, that's
45% cost of
probably a
goods.
little,
Let's use some,
yeah.
use some examples here. You know, a doodle comes in, you guys charge X. You know, it'll take you this long, which will be about this much of labor, which gives you your 45% margin. Break that down a little bit more for us.
Yeah, so as a franchise system, so when we talk about revenue, the first thing about when I look at a P&L, and this is what groomers really should be thinking about when they're looking at their business. When you look at a P&L, revenue is just about the validation that in your market there's a demand for what you're doing, right? So if we generate revenue, then we're in a space that there's a demand for what we do. But the next piece is your gross margin, and what's made up of gross margin is you're going to deduct a couple of key costs. The first one is your direct labor. That's your dog groomer, your bather, anybody that has their hands on these animals to deliver the product. We need to make sure that, and then there's one other direct materials. So in our case, shampoos and the conditioners. So we want to take our materials and we want to take our labor, add those two together, subtract them from your revenue. That's your gross margin. Your gross margin must be at 40, your cost must be at 45% or less. Now, a lot of dog groomers like the model of, let me just put everybody on commission. I'm going to split the ticket. So if I have $100 for a dog grooming ticket, $50 is going to go to my grooming staff. And in some cases, that includes your bather. And in some cases, it doesn't. And if you're running your business that way, you're going to have a hard time scaling and growing because you're leaving too much profit on the table and you can't reinvest in your own business. And so that's what we saw as an opportunity. The economics of running a dog grooming business were off. They were off by as much as 10%. And not because these are bad people, these are amazing folks, but it's easy to just do commission. And there are some advantages in terms of reducing my overhead and kind of managing that. But so you got to get the unit economics right. And then the last piece is your overhead, your rent, your utilities, your insurance, our wellness tech, that's part of overhead. And so that piece has got to be competitive, and you need to know how many dogs it's going to take to break even, right? So we really have to think through the economics. And I know that when I'm talking about this, that there's a lot of dog groomers out there who are listening to what I'm saying, and it sounds like I'm talking hieroglyphics, right? They're just not used to understanding that part of the business. So what we train on is we train on how to run your business by the numbers. Like, this is the most important part. Otherwise, it's just a hobby. But they want it to be something that they're passionate about, but they also want to be able to make money. And so helping them build that roadmap to doing that. And the only way you get there, you must be able to grow your business because the costs are very high up until a certain point. So, I don't know if that answers your question, but we spend a lot of time on economics.
That definitely answered my question. I knew you were going to be so dialed there. I mean, my big takeaways from what you just said, 45% gross margin, that needs to be done. And for everyone out there, again, that's the direct cost of your labor and materials per dog and what you bring in for that dog. The other big takeaways, you guys don't do commission. That's really interesting, especially in this industry. So I'm curious, follow-up question there. You guys do salary, hourly? What's kind of the structure you guys have found that works for you and your staff?
Yeah, it's hourly, and I apologize. Sun's going down here in Southern California, but getting a little dark. So I'll be your
All
shadow
good.
guest. But
All
they,
good.
yeah, it's most of them are hourly. Now, as a franchise system, we have the flexibility. We can't tell you how to run your business. We give you the guidelines to be successful, but you can run it any way you want. And so there are some that have some of their groomers on salary. So these would be your lead groomers, for example, and then the rest of your staff is on hourly. But hourly is really kind of your best. With hourly workers, you have your greatest opportunity to make the most money in your salon. When you do commission, you limit your upside, but you reduce. When you're slow, you reduce your cost. But when you're busy, you reduce your upside. Well, if what I said is true and the demand for the dog grooming business is so high, we all should be able to get to capacity, and the hourly wage model is the most profitable model in the long run.
How do you incentivize your staff or franchise's staff to really make sure the quality is there and that they are, working with this dog and getting it out in, I don't want to say a timely manner, but actually caring once you're paid hourly? How do you keep those incentives aligned for, maybe someone that might fall into that 6 month, 1 year slump of, oh, I'm going to make X amount per day no matter what. Like, I'm just going to kind of slack.
Yeah, this is a super important question that you just asked, because there is a balance between revenue, what you pay your groomers, and production, and we have to balance that. We have to look at that. But you must, and they do. You must put the wellness of the animal ahead of all of it. I mean, I've heard of dog grooming salons that won't dry a dog if they come in for a bath. They won't dry it because of the time and the cost to dry a large dog. The impact on the wellness of that animal, the negative impact on that is actually pretty brutal. And so what we want to do is understand the balance. So we don't create incentives. There's two things I think that'll help answer this question. The first one is when we bring on franchisees, they'll work in their stores as they're hiring and staffing up and getting their teams ready. But we built a model where you don't work in your business, you work on your business. And so it's really hard. And look, I was an entrepreneur when I first started out. That's all I did, Alex. I worked in my business and I could not grow. There were 3 times in my career where my business hit a ceiling. And I'll tell everybody what it was. It was about $2 million. We were startup. We had $2 million in sales, and then we crashed. And I tell this story a lot to all my franchisees. 3 times in a row, we hit just over 2 million and we crashed. Over 2 million, we crashed. And then I was at my wit's end. My wife she was like ready to just beat me like a harp seal. And she finally said to me, she said, Mike, you got to make a change here. So I hired an operations guy and I took away some of the work that I was not very good at, that took a lot of my time, so I could free myself to do what I was really great at, and I was growing the business. It was about a 18-month window. We surpassed every single financial goal. We 4x'd our revenue because I had somebody doing what was taking and burdening me. So if you're a dog groomer and you're running your business, it's going to be really hard to grow that business because you're stuck in the business. What you want to do is create a pathway to get out of the business and work on the business. That will allow you to grow to multiple locations, add new services, and really think about it. So how do we do that? We do that with technology. Technology is the best way to do it. It's hard to run these businesses. And if you can use technology to guide you, to track you, to time you, for example, we can see how long it takes to do a golden retriever that's 8 years old that weighs 55 pounds. I can see how long it takes to do that dog across our whole system. So if I said to you, Alex, hey, your store is operating at 11% slower pace than the rest of our franchise system, that's actually business intelligence that you can work with. Okay, what are we missing? Well, let's train up. Maybe it's scissoring skills. Maybe it's your staff. Maybe we can think about this and actually help you accelerate without changing the care of the animal. We change the technique and the strategy and how we work with the animal. So for us, technology is the answer because it's really hard without it.
100%. I mean, and it's all the stuff that people as groomers don't want to do anyways. I mean, who wants to stay after 6 or 7 p.m. when all the dogs have left and do your scheduling for the next day and do, your payroll and do your calculate your commissions or your wages? Like all of
Yeah.
that stuff is stuff that I don't want to do as a groomer anyways. And so, at the end of the day, that's probably the easiest thing to, get rid of first when you're trying to move out of your business. I've got two questions for you, Michael, as we wrap up here. One, people listening to this podcast, they are probably wondering, okay, like this guy's onto something with this wellness in my salon or in grooming salons. I don't know his 50 points or the 67 points. What are like the first things that I can do today to start becoming a salon that cares about canine wellness, or maybe makes a proactive difference in my client's canine's wellness like factor?
Well, yeah, I'm going to flip the script on you just a little bit there because I think dog groomers in general are already there. That's why they do what they do. These are amazing, creative, super awesome people who care about these animals and they want to do something special. They just don't know how to make that a meaningful part of their business. So the first thing is just your messaging. It's your communication with your teams, and it's communication with your pet parents to establish your brand in your market. You do not just want to be another groomer. That the market's going to correct itself. It always does. We're going to end up with more supply, and some of the dog grooming businesses that are struggling a little bit are going to find it really hard to be competitive. In my dental world, when I got into that industry, there were 12,500 competitors. Compare that to dog grooming, that is 100,000 competitors. But there were 12,500 within about a 15-year window, and the introduction of technology. When I left and sold to private equity, there were only 3,000. So we lost 80% of our industry. Now, I'm not saying technology will do the same thing in the dog grooming world, but the winners, the folks who have really been thoughtful about, one, the brand experience, build a brand that people feel good about. Two, the way that you talk about and the way that you care for these animals, you're already doing it. Now just take message and say, I care about your animal. And now just formalize it with your pet parents, formalize it with your teams, make it a routine that these are things we're going to look at. You don't have to do everything that we're doing. Just look at these animals because, let me give you a stat because I didn't share this with you. So we've collected in this 2-year period already, we've collected a little over 2 million data points of canine wellness. The average salon, and this is, I don't think I've ever shared this before, but the average salon will, 55% of the dogs that we see, and we track this daily, weekly, monthly. I have a dashboard where I see all these visualizations. Maybe we can talk about that in a future podcast, but 55% of every dog that comes in, and remember, these are some of the best taken care of dogs in the industry because they're spending a lot of money on the dog grooming. 55% that come in have 1.9 wellness issues happening with them. That's what we see. So every dog groomer that's listening to your podcast, they know this to be a truth. They can see the changes in the animal. They see it. So everything from vaccinations to severe matting to wound care, skin and coat are some of the biggest one. Ask your groomers about dental, teeth, the condition of the dog's teeth. This is a huge one. Behavior and anxiety. So we're already doing it. So to answer your question very, very pointedly, they're already doing it. All they need to do is formalize that and make it part of their message because it becomes a culture now, a part of their culture. So we are not just a dog groomer. We're an advocate for you, the pet parent, to make sure that this dog lives its happiest, its healthiest, and its best looking life possible. That's what they want to achieve.
I mean, heck yeah, man. I'm ready to run through a brick wall after that. My last question here as we wrap up is if people want to learn more about the canine wellness pillars that you guys speak about or well groomed in general, I mean, do you have a resource or blog or anything else out there available that we can point people to or even just a website just to learn more about the canine wellness factors that you speak about?
Yeah, and I want to just share, we are not, well, we are in the space. We very much view ourselves as competition, right? So we want to elevate the whole industry. We want to lift groomers to be at the pinnacle and let everyone else sort of benefit from the information and knowledge that we have because we handle these animals so frequently and for so long. So having said that, we're an open book. They can call us. You can go to wellgroomedopportunities.com and you can reach out and we'll share this information. And look, you don't have to be an owner of one of our franchise systems to benefit from some of the things that we're doing. And by the way, we can benefit from everything that they're doing as well. They can share with us some of their stories, what they like. We do we have a program that runs every month. It's sponsored by Hydra. It's Groomer of the Month. We do trainings that are open to the entire grooming industry. So we don't just do it for ourselves. We do it because we think it's right for there are some that is proprietary and unique to us, but we open up our trainings so that all groomers can do it. Again, we want to do this together. I'll leave you with this. This was kind of cool. And I don't think we've done anything super special here. I think we've used technology. Probably we've been thinking about technology maybe a little bit differently than the grooming industry, but the groomers that are listening to your podcast are so far ahead of what I could ever learn and know about the dog grooming world. I celebrate them. I think that's awesome. But let me just share with you. When Mercedes came out with a patent for the airbag, they decided, I think it was the airbag, they decided to not keep that patent to themselves and to make it available to the entire car industry because it's good for everybody. If this industry can get coalesced around wellness and really elevate ourselves, say we know more about these dogs and the changes in their wellness and potentially their health than anyone else, I think we begin to lift up our stature and everyone starts to listen to what we have to say because they're already doing it. We just got to bring that to the market.
I mean, I did not know that Mercedes story, and I mean that makes a lot of sense. I mean, personally, I never view, any chains, franchises, anyone as competition to an indie store, right? I mean, this
Yeah.
is you said it earlier in the podcast. There is more than enough demand to go around for all of us, which is
Yeah.
why I think even in the Facebook communities or even in the Daily Groomer community, why news is so or why knowledge is just so widely shared. I mean, no one feels the need to gatekeep anything because everyone knows, I mean, or everyone should know that there's more than enough to go around for all of us. And so I love that analogy about the Mercedes-Benz airbag. And I love your numbers that you were able to bring in. I mean, I learned a ton just about the industry, just listening to you there. Michael, I really, really appreciate you coming on. You are a wealth of knowledge and you've already hinted at it, but I would love to have you back on to even, share your screen and see some more of these numbers in depth, learn more about that 50-point checklist, maybe what are some of the common issues that you guys see a lot that we might be missing, and
Yeah.
all sorts of that sort of stuff. So again, I just really appreciate it. You've been a blessing to have on the show.
Yeah, awesome. However we can help. And someone's going to correct me because I probably messed up that Mercedes thing, but it was something like it was the airbag or the seatbelt or something. But anyway,
Okay.
but
I
the
mean, hey.
analogy made a lot of sense, right? So
Yeah, yeah. And we won't catch you on anything. But all right, guys. And if anyone wants to get a hold of Michael directly, you guys can reach out to us at stories@thedailygroomer.com. And we'll kind of we'll pass you guys along. Michael, really appreciate it. And that's the pod, guys.